What if the most famous underdog story in history was never about the underdog at all? The story of David and Goliath isn't a tale of human courage defeating impossible odds. It's a story about what happens when God fights your battles. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into one of the most well-known stories in all of Scripture, David and Goliath. But we're not just retelling it. We're going to look at the divine intervention woven through every moment of this encounter. Because when you see it, it changes everything about how you understand this story. Let's get into it. The story takes place in 1 Samuel chapter 17. Israel is at war with the Philistines. The two armies are camped on opposite hills with the valley of Elah between them. And out of the Philistine camp comes a champion, Goliath of Gath. Scripture tells us in 1 Samuel chapter 17 verses 4 to 7, a champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. His height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a bronze helmet on his head and wore a coat of scale armor of bronze weighing 5,000 shekels. On his legs he wore bronze greaves, and a bronze javelin was slung on his back. His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod, and his iron point weighed 600 shekels. That's roughly 9 feet tall, wearing over 125 pounds of armor. This man was a walking fortress. And every morning and every evening for 40 days, Goliath stood and issued his challenge. 1 Samuel chapter 17 verses 8 to 10, I am not a Philistine, and you are not the servants of Saul. Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us. This day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other. Now, here's what most people skip over. Look at the response of Israel in 1 Samuel chapter 17 verse 11. On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. Every soldier, every commander, the king himself, paralyzed with fear. 40 days of it. And this is the first clue about divine intervention. God was setting a stage where no human solution would work. He was emptying the room of human ability so that his power could fill it. Enter David. He is not a soldier. He is the youngest of Jesse's sons, a shepherd boy sent by his father to bring bread and cheese to his brothers at the front lines. That's in 1 Samuel chapter 17 verses 17 to 18. But here's where divine intervention begins long before the battle. Go back to 1 Samuel chapter 16 verses 12 to 13. So he sent for him and had him brought in. He was glowing with health and had a fine appearance and handsome features. Then the Lord said, Rise and anoint him. This is the one. So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the presence of his brothers, and from that day on, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David. God had already chosen David. God had already anointed David. The Spirit of the Lord was already on him before he ever set foot in that valley. This was not a coincidence. This was a divine appointment. When David hears Goliath's challenge, his reaction is completely different from everyone else's. 1 Samuel chapter 17 verse 26. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that should defy the armies of the living God? David doesn't see a giant. He sees a man defying God, and that distinction matters, because David's confidence was never in himself. Look at what he tells Saul in 1 Samuel chapter 17 verses 34 to 37. Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hands of this Philistine. Notice, the Lord who rescued me. David credits every past victory to God. The lion, the bear, those weren't just life experiences, they were God training David, building his faith, preparing him for this exact moment. Divine intervention doesn't always look like a miracle in the moment. Sometimes it looks like preparation. Saul tries to put his own armor on David. It doesn't fit. 1 Samuel chapter 17 verse 39, "I cannot go in these," he said to Saul, "because I am not used to them." So he took them off. There's something powerful here. God wasn't going to deliver Israel through conventional means, not through a king's armor, not through military strategy. He was going to do it his way, through a shepherd with a sling, so that everyone would know where the victory came from. David takes 5 smooth stones from the brook and walks into the valley. And this is where we get one of the most powerful declarations of faith in all of Scripture. 1 Samuel chapter 17 verses 45 to 47. "You come against me with my sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves. For the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands." Listen to that again. The battle is the Lord's. David understood something that every person in that valley had missed. This was never Israel's fight. This was God's fight. Goliath hadn't just challenged an army, he had defied the living God, and God was about to answer. 1 Samuel chapter 17 verses 48 to 50. As the Philistine moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead and he fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. Without a sword in his hand, he struck down the Philistine and killed him. 1 stone, 1 shot. A 9-foot warrior in full armor drops face first into the dirt. Scripture even emphasizes without a sword in his hand, as if to make absolutely clear this was not human skill. This was God. Think about the physics for a moment. A stone had to find the one gap in Goliath's armor, his forehead, with enough force to penetrate bone and drop him instantly. David was skilled with a sling, yes, but the precision, the power, the outcome, that was the hand of God guiding the stone. Here's what makes this story even more profound. David and Goliath is a picture of something much larger that God was doing. David, the anointed shepherd king, defeats an army that no one else could defeat. And he does it not for his own glory, but so that, as he said, the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. Centuries later, another son of David, Jesus Christ, would face an enemy that no human could defeat, sin and death itself, and he would conquer it not with military power, but through an act that looked like weakness, the cross. 1 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 27 says, "But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong." A shepherd boy with a stone, a carpenter's son on a cross. God has always worked through what the world overlooks. So, what does this mean for you? It means whatever giant you're facing, fear, addiction, financial ruin, broken relationships, illness, the battle is not yours. 2 Chronicles chapter 20 verse 15 echoes this truth. "Do not be afraid or discouraged because of this vast army, for the battle is not yours, but God's." You don't need Saul's armor. You don't need the world's solutions. You need the same thing David had: faith in a God who fights for his people. If this spoke to you, drop a comment below and let me know what giant you're trusting God to handle. Hit that like button Subscribe if you haven't already, and share this with someone who needs to hear this today.